I'm Jane Thielen. I started this. This looks like it's our 17th meeting. So we do it every other week. So, like half a year-ish, little over. The point of these meetings are just to get people together in a room virtually to see if we can assist in the job search. If nothing else, let you know that there are other people out there fighting the good fight with you, alongside of you, or what have you. I am a recruiter. I'm a connector by nature, so I use that my connecting powers to recruit for small to medium-sized manufacturers. And I also offer job coaching, career coaching, and also outsourcing for companies if heaven forbid they have to lay off some people due to restructure, whatever. So that's the basic in a nutshell. I work mostly in Connecticut and New York, but I work all over the place. I have a few jobs open right now. If anyone knows anyone who's looking for a remote, it's kind of a hybrid job, so they'd be in New York State a few weeks out of the year for a controls engineer or a manufacturing engineer. I would be happy to give you more information on that. And then, Mike, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. So Mike Rivera, I'm a CHRO and also a business advisor. So I work closely with Jane. I also do career coaching and other types of HR consulting. What I would add is in working with Jane, one of the I think strengths of her business is that she focuses on manufacturing, which I think is neglected a lot out there. So we do have a focus on manufacturing, and we try to provide. This is free. We've had guest speakers the last 3 meetings. We had Morris Yankel, who's the owner of HR Computes, to talk about how to beat the ATS system, and you can get that presentation through the ManufacturNET YouTube channel. And then also we had Janet Forte did 2 sessions back to back on overcoming negativity in the workplace. So we hope that this content is helpful for you. And before I turn it over to Jane, what we thought we'd do today is have an open discussion on things you want to talk about. I have a few topics we can talk about, but we'd like to hear from you and how we can help you. Okay, so I'll turn it back over to Jane.
Awesome. So we had someone who said they couldn't attend, but was the burning question was something to do with being over 50 and out there looking for a job. And I'm like, I know how it goes. It's a lot. It happens a lot. So I know Mike spoke on that previously. So that's just a topic that someone wanted to discuss. Does anybody have any questions about their current search or general questions about a search or, situation they wanted to discuss?
Yeah, open topic, and we can always talk about I gave a presentation on biases, which included not only age bias, but we talked about industry bias, which I think is more severe than age bias. Gender bias, consultancy bias, a lot of biases out there. So we could talk about that if you want, but to Jane's point, any open questions that we can help you with today? What's on your mind?
And also pop in your contact information that you wish to share in the chat if you'd like to connect with others on LinkedIn or what have you. So we'd be happy for everyone to connect.
Hey, good morning. This is Bob. How you doing? So
Bob.
Here's one of the questions that I'm kind of fighting right now is transitioning from food and beverage / retail to manufacturing. I'm finding a lot of resistance, making that transition. I've had conversations with a few facilities, but that seems to be the biggest, no direct manufacturing experience. Although I've worked, with companies in the past as a supplier and a provider and all that kind of stuff. But that seems to be the holdup. So I don't know if that's a good topic.
Switching industries, right?
Yes.
So I would rely on others to comment first. And I know there's some esteemed colleagues here of mine that are also on this call, Mr. Dean and others. But I would rely on the group's expertise on this, and then I can comment on it. So anyone have any insights into the struggles with changing industries and what you can do to overcome some of those biases?
My 2 cents is, the manufacturing industry in general says they need more people to work, right? So they say they want more people to work, but then are they not open-minded to people who haven't worked in the industry but can bring in significant experience? That seems to be a problem with, I'm going to say one thing and do another, so I think there's always a way to illustrate, and I'll go back again to what's the job you're applying for, what's the job description, and are you matching up your skills with the job description on your resume, or are you just popping in here's my resume, right? So if you do the hard work of doing the jobscan.co or some of those other things that Morris mentioned and you can access from the video on the YouTube channel, it's preparing to make it as easy for a recruiter like me to say, oh, he was at XYZ company, but I see he clearly did A, B, and C, and that's what we're looking for. So I will go to bat for him and say, he's done this, but only at different sort of company. Anyone else?
I don't know if that's a question, but yes, I've been trying to match up with like operations positions, things like that. So, or management, sales management, things that I've done in the past, just not in the manufacturing, environment. And I've gotten calls. I did an interview per se a couple of weeks ago, and it was basically, hey, you don't have any manufacturing experience, so we're going to pass, is what it came down to.
Go ahead, Chris.
Oh, hi. No, I just want to make sure someone finished their thought before I jumped in. So, hi, good morning, everybody. Yeah, I'd like to comment on that because I can share from experience. Changing industries in the manufacturing area, I think, is a lot more, at least from my experience, has been a lot more open. Some other industries like CPG, pharmaceutical, where I don't have any experience, they've been more regiment in terms of they want someone definitively with that industry experience. I've worked in dental medical devices, and then I transitioned into construction building materials, and I found some parallels. Some industries within manufacturing type of businesses are more open to having people with a fresh pair of eyes, and they're not as adamant about having that depth and breadth of industry experience for multiple years. Manufacturing, companies have very similar infrastructures, similar cross-functional teams. You have engineering, you have R&D, you have marketing, operations. So the way I'm able to, what's been successful for me is able to bridge, even though it's a distinct level of product lines, to bridge it into that company, what you can offer from the skills, what your experience has been in working and leading with cross-functional teams, and understanding the intricacies of a manufacturing business. So, for example, when I worked at dental medical devices a number of years ago, I didn't come out of the dental industry, but I was able to get my foot in the door because they were open for bringing somebody from the outside. They didn't want someone specifically in the industry. And then I kept looking around for dental medical devices, wasn't able to successfully find anything locally in Connecticut. And I said, let me give a shot at going into a different industry, which was construction building materials the last few years. And that's been the last set of industries that I've been in. But I was able to bridge from one industry to another simply on the basis, when I looked at the job description, I was able to show the transferability of the skills and the value and bridge it into the organization. And they also were open to having someone. So I think if you flush that out up front in the screening and interview process, and you flat out saying, look, I was very honest. I said, look, I'm coming into this. I have a lot of the skills that can match what's needed in the description. I don't have the industry experience. Is that a showstopper? And they were very accommodating and said, no, not necessarily. We're open to that. So that can save you time and pain in the long run if you continue through the interview process and flush that out. But from my experience, I've been able to transition into multiple industries, over the years, and I haven't had any bad ill will about it. It's been successful. So I think it's just the way you have to approach it and how you can bridge. What also has worked is in my transition right now, I'm looking at related industries. So for example, if I think of building materials and construction, if I can't find something in that specific industry, I'm looking at tangential or related industries. So I think you have to think a little outside the box. So chemicals, adhesives, coatings are examples of things related to building materials, similar chemistries, similar compositions. And so you have to almost think about the industries that are sort of interrelated to the industries that you're working in. And that is a nice, easier bridge than going into something dramatically, like say from manufacturing into CPG, which is B2C versus B2B. So I think that's a way of bridging it if you have a little apprehension of going into a different industry. So those are just my 2 cents and suggestions.
That was very helpful. That was very good information. Anyone else?
Very well said. There are industry segments within manufacturing, and I think some of it. And Christopher, well said. So thank you for that perspective. And you're right about like pharma. Pharma may give us a view into what may be helpful, because a lot of times people who were not in pharma got in pharma via an interim assignment or contract role. And then the company became comfortable with them and then ultimately hired them. If there's certifications particular to that industry, manufacturing industry or things of that nature, anything that can demonstrate a competence, proficiency in their field, attend sessions, what am I trying to say? Sessions that they can, like industry events and things like that, is very helpful, because then you get to know the people that are on the inside and you demonstrate an interest and demonstrate a competency. So it's all about a bit of showing them how you can bridge that gap. And at the end of the day, it's still networking is your best friend to get in the door.
And I think most of you are in Connecticut. I know I'm going tomorrow to the aerospace component manufacturers event. They're always looking for people. It's so fascinating to me to see all the tiny little pieces and how they get put together and what they become. So there's that. And then there's also Manufacture CT. They have some events, and I know there's other. Howard had mentioned some event, and I forget, it was some segment. Do you remember what that was, Howard? It was in Massachusetts, I think.
What, the design to parts or something like that?
Yes, sir. Yeah, thank you. Sorry. Nothing like putting you on the spot there, right?
Well, I have to think about that. So that, I believe, was the very end of September. But they have meetings every, 3 or 4 months. Sometimes it's in New Jersey, sometimes it's in Massachusetts. They tend to go around. I don't know if there's one I don't think there's one in Connecticut. Design to part.
There is design to part in Connecticut at the Mohegan location. No, sorry, this is Ken.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you, Ken.
Yes. You guys hear me okay? My internet is not working well.
Yeah, we hear you perfectly fine.
So I have a topic.
Yes, sir.
So, and we will all refrain from the politics of this topic. But my topic is around the vaccine. And that is, have you been asked in the interview process if you are vaccinated? Yes, no, any comments to that?
Yes.
And/or for some of you that's been working, what the company is doing. There is a mandate, a federal mandate effective January 4th, 2022. It's going to require employers over 100 employees to demonstrate vaccinated status or get tested weekly and must wear a mask in the office. But it is, I could tell you that it is more and more common for companies to use it as a screening tool and ask during the interview. So someone said yes, but let's talk about this topic for a bit without getting political, and your experience and maybe any questions around this in the interview process.
So Mike, I'll respond from my perspective. Certainly, I've started to work with the New Jersey Manufacturing Extension Program, and for the audience here, these are programs that are in every state, and this is a nonprofit organization to really support the growth and development of burgeoning, if you will, and growing manufacturers that are just trying to improve, scale their business, things of that nature. So I joined them as a consultant. One of the first things that they asked me is they'd like to do face-to-face sessions with me. And they asked me if I was immunized to be able to do this in a safe way. And so I did have to respond to that. I felt comfortable doing that, both, because I'm immunized, and number two, because I just don't have an affinity to not sharing that information with people, right? It's just, I just think it's, from my perspective, I'm comfortable with that. But I've also gone on other interviews with employers in different industry segments. And when I'm doing face-to-face, before we have those, it is a question that comes up that I have to respond to. They've never asked me to share any credentials about, my vaccination status in terms of any kind of vaccination cards of that nature. They take it, in terms of the honesty system. But that's been my experience. I'm comfortable as an individual. But also, I see more and more employers asking that question on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm. And Alan's my esteemed colleague. Thank you for joining. And I get this impression that this mandate January 4th, even though there may be court challenges, but I think this is going to be yet another level of employers reacting to it, because I think some have taken a passive approach. Honesty system, things like that. I think this mandate is going to ratchet up. We're going to have like a COVID, 2.0 in terms of employer enforcement and perhaps employee reaction.
Yeah, I do think it's a very polarizing event right now, but I think employers will respond, from the standpoint of, hey, listen, I've got a duty to my existing population to make sure that people I'm bringing into the organization are safe for them, and the organization's environment itself is safe in terms of the vaccination status of the team as they look to reconvene. And manufacturing hasn't really had an option, right? They've been in the factories producing throughout this process, right? Now, they couldn't send everybody home to work remotely. So manufacturers have really embraced this from the standpoint of it just makes for a more comfortable, safe environment for the team, to have a workforce that is vaccinated, and everybody feels, more comfortable in that setting as they go forward. But certainly there are fringe issues here that come into play that people, certainly need to surface and get some support on. But I see it as, from a manufacturing standpoint, that something that those employers will really gravitate to and probably stick to the letter of the law in terms of what they're going to expect from the workforce.
Thank you, Alan.
Yep.
Anyone else, your experiences in the interview process?
I have one of my main clients. I have four jobs with them right now, and they will not. It's part of my screening. If you're not vaccinated, or if you don't have the the specific reasons for not being vaccinated, they're not gonna take even the resume.
Yep. Jane, that I didn't respond to that, but I find that the same with a lot of the recruiters that I had dealt with, that they like to meet me in person. And so they would ask for that. And again, it may sort of based off of the level that you're trying to enter the organization on. But yeah, that was a common thing that I was doing with recruiters. Again, I was comfortable with that. We were smart about it, but yes, we went to some central site to do a face-to-face sit-down discussion.
Yeah. I've not had any candidates who've been declined because they haven't been vaccinated. So I think, the majority of people we're running into are okay with that. But yeah, it's interesting. So, and then I feel like there's some organizations where there are people, like I have a field service engineer who we're trying to fill, who's traveling internationally. So you really can't travel internationally without, your vaccination.
Right.
So it's just, yeah, it's complicated. And I have many feelings in both ways for it. So, I keep all my personal stuff out of it, but it's just another layer of challenge, I feel, for people who are looking for a job now.
And someone earlier, when I asked the original question, said yes to my question of, were you asked during the interview process? Anybody want to share that experience or comment on that?
This is Ken again. Yes, that was me. I did have a phone interview, and at the very end of the interview, they did ask if I was vaccinated. And since I am, I did tell them. I guess I didn't have a problem telling them. But I guess if I wasn't, I don't know, if they would have considered me or not.
And certainly it's legal for employers to ask that question as long as they ask all of their employees as well. So they can't just ask prospective applicants and not their employee base. So if they're at least consistent and they ask everybody, then they can ask it during the interview. And it's going to become more common, because I hear that all the time, that in fact, in a lot of cases, it's the first question that recruiters ask. So, I think you all need to get comfortable with the question. However you respond to it is up to you, but that question, may be asked and likely will be in the future as you go along your job search.
Yeah, I think it's a slippery slope, because they're going to start asking, they could start asking other medical questions is what's going to happen.
Yeah, but how does HIPAA come into play with that?
Good question.
Doesn't that fall within the boundaries of HIPAA?
Yes, so that is protected information, right? So it's the responsibility of the HR department, as they gather that, to kind of keep that separate information. It doesn't go into anyone's file, right? Personal file. It may be in your medical file where you have, either as an employee or perhaps as a new hire indicated your vaccination status.
Right. Yeah. No, the reason I bring that up is because when I was at my recent employer and people were going through the rounds of vaccinations, and we kept our distance with the masks and everything, it was not disclosed to the rest of the office who was vaccinated or who was not. It was kept private.
Yep.
For that reason. So you didn't know, unless people willingly volunteered to say, oh, I got my shot today, then you kind of anecdotally found out about it, but they were not disclosing who in the building or in the office had vaccinated or not vaccinated. And
That's
also, right. I appreciate knowing about that. When I've gone through some of the interview processes, in my experience, as of yet, I have not been approached on the direct question, have you been vaccinated or not? What I have encountered, and I will keep that in mind in how to approach that, no one has asked me directly what it is the jobs I'm going for either offer hybrid or remote. So the subject is kind of touched around more of that, where they let me know, oh, you'll have to be fully remote, or you'll have to come into the office a couple days, and we still have that work-life balance. It's more of that discussion right now, and not directly at the vaccine itself. They'll say we're transitioning, or we're having people come to the office, or we're fully back in the office. So it's more of that I've encountered, but not specifically the question, but I will make note of it should I do encounter it in the near future.
And
Keep in mind that sorry, Jane, just one comment to that. This is enforcement under OSHA, under their general duty clause to protect employees. And we all know that the mandate, the asking of questions, I mean, we know that this has been challenged in court, and employers have been supported in their requirements if in fact they require vaccine to be an employee. And in fact, made headlines, many companies who have terminated their employees, given them deadlines, and the courts have supported that. Jane?
and that, it's good to have the legal background to just be able to discuss, to come from, and I was just going to make a comment about what Chris was saying about the hybrid or the fully remote. There are many, many, many companies now that are going fully remote. So it's an interesting topic to think about the vaccine, and then think about some of these opportunities that are remote. And then perhaps that's, another avenue that people can go down to look specifically for remote jobs, because there are a lot more out there now. So anything else on this particular topic we want to?
Hi, my name is Fred Brooks. Can you guys hear me?
Yes,
Yep.
yes, sir.
Yeah,
Hi, Fred.
so I'm in Houston, Texas. I haven't specifically gotten asked yet about my vaccine status. I have been looking for remote, hybrid, or in-office jobs. I really think it's, I respect everybody's choices. So my concern would be for those people that do have the religious or the medical exemption reasons. Are companies frowning upon those exemptions?
No, I wouldn't say they're frowning upon it. I think we all know there are medical and religious exemptions. There's a vetting process to that companies must go through to qualify people under those exemptions. So I wouldn't say they frown upon it, but there is a process that companies and employees must go through to qualify for those exemptions.
Okay. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and also if those exemptions hold, right, there's probably a different protocol those employees are going to need to follow on a regular basis as it relates to masking or not vaccination, but getting a COVID test on a regular basis to continue to evaluate their ability to safely kind of work in the work environment if that job is required, or they're going to be required to do that as a part of their job.
Does that help, Fred?
Yeah, it does. I was always wondering, hey, if a person decided to say, oh, I didn't get my vaccine because of this reason, was their resume going to automatically be trashed because there are other people out there that may have already decided to get the vaccine?
Yeah, no. But as I said, there is a process they must go through, both employer and employee, when someone is stating that.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, guys.
Anything else on this topic?
Should you have whether you're vaccinated or not on your resume?
I wouldn't. I don't think that now you're really sending that out, your personal information to everybody. I think, yeah.
Yeah, because I don't have it on mine.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
Yeah, it's I'm in a few networking circles here, and one is a high level HR one, and that topic came up, and there are recruiters out there, executive search firms that are providing that advice to do that, and I agree with Alan. I would not do it. I would not do it.
It's not like you normally put, I am over 18, I'm able to work legally in the United States on your resume either, right? So yeah, and that is a very slippery slope. I would never recommend.
I would not do it.
Yeah, I wouldn't put on the resume either. That just opens up a Pandora's box into other personal things. Like you don't want to share age because of ageism. You don't want to share medical. You don't want to share a lot of personal, especially, the resume is meant to be professional. You should limit how much personal stuff, and I wouldn't put anything like that. Even things like, on LinkedIn where you say, everybody's in transition, open to work, and you have that hashtag open to work, that's a personal choice whether you want to go that far, but I wouldn't put vaccinated on a resume or anything. The way you can dance around the issue, like, I was touching upon earlier, is in the interview process, either, right off the bat, position will say on-site, or it will say hybrid or remote. So you don't even get into the discussion. Or if you really want the job and they say on-site, at some point in the interview process, you could dance around it and saying, are you open to remote? If it's a long distance or long commute, and that is a sort of subtle way. Say you are unvaccinated, it's a way of working around it. Is saying, are you open to remote or some work flex, ability without even getting into the vaccination discussion? It's just a little creative way around it if you need to be.
Yeah, some search people will tell you it's an advantage. I don't think so. So I would not do it, folks. And look, COVID is a reality that's not going away. So we have to learn to live with it. And this is just one aspect of it. But to answer your question, I would not.
Yeah. And anyone
good
have
question.
Great question. Really great question. And I feel it kind of points out that, everybody has their own opinion, right? So I don't think there's a right or a wrong, but I think in this case, I 110, you almost always agree with Mike, but I 110% believe that the vaccinated status should not be out front. You shouldn't, it's not something you lead with. Like, I would never put on my resume, my full work history, because that would show people. I would never put on I graduated high school in 1989. I don't need anybody to do that math and figure out, how old I am and think in their head, how many more years do you think she's going to be working? Because that kind of is a little bit about what's behind that age bias. It's, if I hired this person at 50 or 65, are they going to be working much longer? And am I going to, really get that much value from this person? Could be what's in their head, right? So, so we don't need to. I don't just feel like there's a lot of things you don't need to announce, right?
That's a good point, Jane. On my resume, I have when I graduated college and the dates and previous work history with dates. So is that bad to have on there?
I feel like in our group, we kind of talk about 20-ish years, right, Mike? Go back like 20-ish years. I don't feel like anybody ever needs to know when someone graduates from college unless they recently graduated.
Okay, sounds good to me.
I think that the resume has to be relevant. So some people have worked for great companies, name brand companies, but it happened X many years ago. And I say it could be a career advantage to list that you've worked for certain companies. I don't think, I think the bias is real, but I think that if you focus on it, then you're kind of self-defeating, yourself. I think that, I welcome people to do the math on me, and I think employers will hire you. I mean, it's just a bit of a funnel, if you will. But there are employers that will hire you. So I think that you should never lie on a resume. I've heard people say, like, and especially if you've worked somewhere for 20 years, well, you can't hide that. You can't change your start date, because the one thing that employers will verify is your dates of employment. So I've heard someone tell me, said, well, I was advised that, I worked at this place 25 years, but only list it for 10 years because then it'll show my age. Well, now you're lying on your resume. And you may get hired, but if they find out, they'll fire you, or at least I would if I was the head of HR. So don't ever lie on the resume. And I would say, don't be so self-conscious. There has to be a natural cutoff to your resume that makes sense. There's no magical number that it has to go back only 10 years, 20 years. There's no magical number.
So would you keep the dates for the current position, the start date, but on all the previous jobs, don't put a date in there?
Yeah, no. If you have the resume should be consistent. So if you have dates of employment, which you should, and then it's depending if you have year or month and year, but that should be consistent throughout, through any employers you decide to list on your resume. You know what, guys, you can't really hide if you only go back 10 years and they have a Zoom interview, they're going to see that you're of a certain age, right? And then I always say you have to be very credible and be your authentic self is more important because you can't really hide your age one way or another. You may get the phone call, but then when they see you, they'll know you're of a certain age, right? So I would not be obsessed with that. And your resume should be consistent, should be a consistent format. And yes, you should list the dates of employment.
Yeah, and I think you have some flexibility too, because when you look at positions and you look at the qualifications and requirements, I've seen ones that are specific and they do provide a time frame. They say must have at least 5 or 10 years of a certain experience. And so you can gauge that when you're customizing your resume to apply for that position. In other cases where they don't specify how many years of experience they want, it gives you a little more flexibility, I guess. But 10 to 15 years is a good gauge, at least at what I've heard, to keep on your resume. But some positions at a high level, want that longevity. They want 10, 15, 20 years experience, and they would be adamant about saying it in the job description. And then you have a little flexibility to kind of share your longevity of your work experience.
I tend to think that if you have, let's say, 25 years of experience and you're only listing 10 to 15, you're not listing a lot of great experience. Why would you do that to yourselves? Because you're trying to make yourself look younger? It just doesn't make any sense to me. To me, put your best face forward, put your best resume forward. The resume just has to be relevant. Doesn't matter if it's 1 page or 3 pages, just has to be relevant. Now, sometimes, early in your career, maybe you made a career change, an industry change early in your career. You might want to leave that off. That's fine, but it has to be relevant. But I think people are just misguided on this, and they're leaving out a lot of great experience that will help you land a job.
And it's really about, I joke and say, like, in the first interview and with your resume, it's kind of like, your first date, right? You're not telling them everything, but you're not lying. And it's really what the resume is, what's relevant. So they're going to want to talk to you on the phone or in person or whatever. Like, how can you honestly put your best foot forward?
There was a question in the chat, AJS, and I don't know if you want to comment on this, but it says, I've sent applications out and they ask for ethnicity, gender, if I am a veteran, any disability. If you opt out, are you then being penalized for opting out? Legally, no. Legally, no. Those are more for demographic data, things like that. It should not in no way inhibit or displace you from being in consideration for that role. So no.
And Mike, they don't use that information for, I'm going to contact Maria because she's in XYZ category, and that will help me with my diversity. Or because I've never really known. I know that they ask these questions, but do they do anything with them other than here's our data?
Well, it depends. It depends if they have, if the employer, let's say, for instance, has government contracts, then they must report that kind of demographic data. And there's, so there are reasons why an employer may ask that, but it would and should have no bearing on the selection process.
Thanks for sharing that, because, I go through that all the time on the online postings, and they always ask those questions, and I wasn't sure what the information is being used for. And then I'm thinking to myself, do they have the right to ask me those questions, especially in this day and age where diversity, race, sexual preference, all this stuff is so sensitive now. Just because I say I'm not Hispanic or Latino, is that going to give someone else an advantage? And I'm always wondering about that in the back of my head. You can't lie, obviously, but what's the value of me sharing that? If it's merely just for statistical and demographic or ethnographic purposes, that's fine. But if it's going to be used because they need to fulfill a diversity quota and they're using that, then that would bother me a little bit in terms of me not getting a fair share at, being considered. So I don't know if I'm reading into it too much or I shouldn't read into it too much, but you always get that at the tail end of an application. They always ask that. And sometimes you don't have the option to opt out. They require it in some cases. It's not optional. So I just wanted to touch upon that from my experience.
From someone who has led HR departments in big companies, it's a perception that applicants have and employees have, but it has no bearing on the selection process. I think employers strive to have a diverse workforce, the EEOC has been around for a long time. And again, there may be also legitimate reasons, government contracts and other reasons to ask that question, but it's not something we use. It's not something that's actively talked about. It's not something that pops up in any way, shape, or form when we're discussing candidates.
All right. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that.
Yes,
I have a
always.
Go ahead, Cynthia.
Cynthia says I'm a product manager, and all of my experience has been in manufacturing. And so I have a question. I've been searching for a while, and throughout the whole pandemic, actually, and also dealing with some family issues. But it's it's still kind of crazy out there. It does seem like things are opening up and more opportunities are out there. I got a call for a 6-month contract, and I've never worked on a contract before. And so I'm wondering what to look out for, and what's involved with that. Because I've never done that before. It's only one part of product management. It's focused on pricing and cost and figuring they're evidently having an issue with it. But if they're really having an issue, why would they hire a 6-month contract person? So that's what I'm thinking. So thoughts, suggestions, recommendations on 6-month contracts?
Anybody? It's great opportunity if you come in as a temporary worker, meaning 6-month assignment, or a 1099 or in another way. But look, a lot of people, particularly during the pandemic, that's how they got hired, is through contract roles, interim assignments. 6 months turn into 3 years. 6 months turns into full-time employment. And I think it's a great opportunity, Cynthia, to fill a gap on the resume, right? And show that you're working, and a lot of people got hired that way. So I would say not much to look out for. I mean, because it's otherwise a regular employment, contract, for lack of a better term, right? It's just, this is for us. The contract part of this is for a specific period of time. Now, if you're going to work for them as a contractor, that's different than working for them as an employee.
Okay, because they said it's on a W-2. So that's.
Yeah, then you'll be an employee.
Okay.
Did you see the note from Ken as well in the chat?
Oh, okay.
And grab his contact information. And it's also on the other end of the spectrum.
All it says is Ken.
Yeah, Ken has his contact information up further though, right, Ken?
Oh, okay. It's like, because it just says Ken on his picture, no picture.
Of course.
No photograph,
Right.
just Ken.
I'm
There
pretty
we are,
sure.
Phone number. Yes, phone numbers are good.
Okay,
So
very
does
good.
that help, Cynthia?
Yeah, I'm just trying to vet it out. Like, what happens if, all this work I've done to send out all these connections and everything, and a dream product manager role comes up. Are you locked in for the 6 months, or?
No, you're
No?
really not.
Okay.
You're really not.
And people like, and you're in a different state when you're working, right? If you're working, you have income coming, and you're just, I don't know, I think it's nice. And then you also get to vet them. What if they're a terrible company and you're like, these 6 months can't go quick enough? you're done. And on your resume, it shows it was a 6-month contract and that was the truth. But if it was a terrible company, then no harm, no foul, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And if it's a 6-month contract, they know you're going to be looking for something else and or looking internally. So then you can have a little more latitude to go on other interviews, at least in my opinion, right? If you're 6 months and you're 4 months in, you're like, hey, I'm not being offered a job here, but I need to look for a job. So I need to leave at 4 o'clock or what have you. So
Right. Yep.
I don't think there's a downside. I really don't.
Yeah, and you're not obligated. I mean, I understand your concern, but companies can lay you off anytime and you can pretty much leave anytime.
I know that's the thing is that I'm
And I think it's
overly loyal
becoming
like
more
that, you know?
commonplace, actually. I think the employment cycle, you remember the old question, where do you want to be in 5 years? You know, I mean, goodness gracious, right now it seems like 18 months at a company is a long time.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
where where in 18 months, either you get moved up or out, or there'll be a new manager in place, or 18-month cycles now, right? It's
crazy.
So it's crazy. So and it's not frowned upon anymore as it used to be. If you're 6 months here, a year here, it used to be you're a job hopper. No longer. I know Howard had a comment. We want to get to Bob's question. So Howard.
Yeah, so I think the last 3 of my jobs have been temporary. And in most cases, in one case, they said it was a year, and that's what happened. The project ended at a year, and that was that. The other 2, they really didn't specify. And what was happening is when you came around working there for a year and the project was not finished, most of the time I got extended a period of time until eventually the project was completed. So the thing is also that for 2 of these, when they accepted me, they actually had me work for a staffing company. They did not want me to work for the company directly. So I was a W-2 employee of the staffing company working at this place. And the thing is that when you do your resume and do your LinkedIn, I think you need to make sure that those documents represent who it is you're really working for, in case there is, in case someone does a search on you, because it may not be the true company, it may be the staffing company. Jane, did I get that approximately right?
I usually recommend, working at BI through XYZ staffing company, right? That's and Mike might have some opinion on that too, but it's just right. It's through it's through in parentheses, whatever, Manpower or whatever it is,
Yes, I've seen there's a couple of placement firms that they hire people who are working at Otis. And so it's like, they have it right out there that they're working for XYZ company at Otis or working at Otis through this company.
Yeah.
So thank you, Howard. Sorry, Jane. Bob's been patient. He had a question.
Yeah, I'm older and I don't know what to
Wiser.
say. I am tired of staying home. So my resume's based on being a sales executive for many years, a lot of experience, with quality and all that. I've started, just because I don't want to be stressed out anymore, I've just started to apply for quote unquote lesser jobs, which I'm happy to do. I could be happy to sit down and be an inspector for, 8 hours a day. But I have tried to send in my resume. I've made it more generic, trying to let them know that, I'm open. I've written the letters with it. I get no responses. But yet I see a ton of jobs out there for inspectors, and here's one sitting here who could be an inspector. And I'd be happy, because like I said, I'm 66 years old. I still would like to work maybe another 5 years or so. I just don't, I'm not getting anywhere. And it's a little frustrating that I've tried calling the companies. Nobody answers their phones. It's just a pain in the neck. I'm not quite sure how I need to communicate this, and I'm usually pretty good at communicating, but in this case, I'm not getting anywhere on the quote unquote lesser job stuff. I can be a production person, I can be estimating. There's a lot of things I can do besides being a sales manager or, sales VP.
You're in Connecticut, right, Bob?
Yes.
Have you called anybody at like CCAT?
No, I haven't called CCAT at all. No.
Because, so I'm on all these webinars and stuff. They're like, oh, we need staff, we need staff, we need staff. And I think there's a disconnect between people like you and other people who are looking for jobs, and what the reality is of, yeah. So I wonder if, I have some people I know, I think at CCAT and a couple of other places I could call and just say, I don't know, did you ever send me your resume?
I don't think so, no.
Okay, I'll message you. Yeah, I'll ask you for your resume, and then just I'll make a few phone calls and see what probably on Thursday I can make some phone calls and just see, clearly he's overqualified, but he could. CCAT is Connecticut. Oh gosh, I forget. It's they work a lot with the manufacturing.
Yeah, no, Advanced Technology Group. Yeah, I know CCAT pretty well.
Yeah, someone asked a question in the thing. So they're helping a lot of the manufacturers with their pipeline for employees and stuff. So I think they might be a good place. And I know there's another consortium I spoke with. I did a presentation, and so I'll just see if I can make some calls for you, because sometimes, it takes someone else to make the calls and to kind of sell a person a little bit. So we'll see.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll send you the resume.
Yeah.
What I would say is, first of all, Bob, you don't look anywhere near your age.
No.
Second of all, cold calls don't work. It is truly networking, because you need an advocate. You need, so you have to, and maybe that's a future topic, Jane, is how to network. And
Yeah.
we shouldn't take that, make that assumption everybody knows how to do it. But it is about the connections you have, and it's about the impression you make on people. Quite frankly, Bob, everybody on this call is a potential connection. You should reach out to everybody on this call on LinkedIn with a little note. Of course, we know you now, but to ask for a connection request, and then you start to build that that network exponentially, and it's like, and then have a conversation with them, right? And you should be targeted in who you want to meet in your industry, 1 and 2 levels above where you want to be, or the roles you're trying to apply for. Have a conversation, make an impression, because part of networking is they have to remember you, right? And then when something comes across, an opportunity comes across, it can be like, hey, you know what? I talked to Bob, and you should talk to him. That's how it works. Trust me. But networking is an art form. I have so many connection requests that I have over 1,000 in my inbox that I will not accept, because it's an invitation, but they didn't make it personal. It's like, who are you?
Yeah.
Right? Make it personal. And I know about 90% of my LinkedIn connections pretty well. And I have about 2,000, almost 2,000, and I know them because I make a point to have a conversation with them.
Yeah,
And
I've
that's
kind of
the
half
difference.
avoided that, actually. So
It's your brand, Bob, right? Think of it. It's your brand. And the power of branding, let me say this. So you have a personal brand. Okay? So people need to know who you are, what you can do. Your elevator pitch is important, so important, right? If you meet someone for the first time, can you explain who you are inside of 30 seconds and what you want? So the power of branding. Does anybody want to take a guess how many unsolicited resumes Google gets in a year? Don't look it up. Just off the top of your head. Don't look it up. Someone take a guess.
100,000.
Oh, probably
100,000. Anybody else?
Right.
10
Like
million?
60 million.
Well, they get 3 million and they hire less than 1%.
Yeah. Gee.
They get 3 million unsolicited applications a year.
3 million.
So they don't have to post on LinkedIn, huh?
No.
And they hire less than 1%. It's 0.67, which is one of the most stringent selection processes there are. That's branding, right? Everybody knows who Google is, and people want to work there. You need to create a personal brand for yourself that people will want to talk to you and hire you. Maybe that's a future topic.
I mean, it's great.
We have only a few minutes. What else you guys want to talk about?
Has anybody specifically looked into, like the kind of what they call the future of manufacturing, like the additive manufacturing and things like that? I know there's a lot of companies that are doing a lot of stuff that's a little more advanced, and they're, hiring quite a bit. And there's at the Manufacture CT meeting, the president of the drone, there was a drone company person that I forget what it's called, Aquilon or something like that.
Aquilon.
Yes. Were you there, Cindy?
No, but I've been following them, and I actually
Yeah.
interviewed for a position there early in the summer. But they're just looking for, at that point, just looking for people to make outbound phone calls.
Oh,
to
not for you.
Yeah. But
No.
they're going after, they were looking at different target markets to go after, and
Yeah.
But they were just
Yeah.
looking for phone calls. They weren't looking for the people to actually figure out the marketing plan. So.
And 3D printed homes is one of my most fascinating things I love. I just love 3D
That
printed homes.
is interesting. I saw something about the 3D printer that could build a house in 24 hours.
Yeah.
Just fascinating to watch the video.
Mighty Homes. I love Mighty Homes. I gotta find I'm so sorry. I'm gonna
Okay,
go
so-
off screen for a second. I gotta find my charger. So
Are there any companies you guys are trying to network in and you need connections?
I have one.
Yes.
Here. They're in Middlefield, and they are it's part of Zygo,
Zygo, yeah.
but there's a couple of different companies kind of mixed in here. And there's Zygo, and there's a company that begins with an A. I'm looking for the name of it. Ametek, Ametek. So I'm not sure if Ametek is the parent company and Zygo is the smaller company locally here that got bought out by them. If anyone has any contacts there, that would be helpful. They have a product marketing director position open.
I think Ametek bought Zygo.
Yeah, it seems like the connection.
Anybody have any connections there?
Not anymore.
No.
Okay. All right, it seems like really, really interesting stuff that they're working on. It is they're measuring with light, so it's extremely precise.
Yeah. Very, very high precision. Yes.
Yep.
Very high end, yeah.
Anything else? Jane, we only have a minute. I'll turn it over to you, and I do have a hard stop at 10:30, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.
yeah, I have a couple of contacts there. Let me just take a peek at who they are, Cynthia, and how much, how connected I am.
Yeah, we can talk afterwards.
Say that again.
We can connect after the call.
Yeah. I have another call I have to take after, but later
Okay,
later
yeah.
today for sure. Anybody have any topics that they want to talk about that you want
Yes,
to
topics.
either email me or what have you?
I do have a question. I'm being contacted by my ex-employer about a lot of quality questions. At what point do I just say, I don't work there anymore? I'm getting
I'm
calls
out.
from sales.
Well, I have to drop off. I'll just say it depends on your severance agreement if you have one, and That's a long question, or a potentially long answer, but it depends if you have a severance agreement with them and the language in there in terms of your obligation towards helping them or working with them.
There's nothing in my contract and what I signed on my package that says that I need to help them.
You sure?
Yep. I just need not to mention a few things, that's all.
I gotta go. I'm not dodging the question, but I gotta go. So please tell us what topics you want us to talk about. That would be very helpful in 2 weeks, or no, we're actually not in 2 weeks, right? In 4 weeks,
In
because 2
4
weeks is
weeks,
Thanksgiving.
it's Thanksgiving week. Yay!
Yay.
Bye,
So-
everybody. I hope this was I gotta go, but I hope it
Thanks,
was
Mike.
helpful for all of you,
Bye.
and
Very
connect
good.
with me.
All right.
All right.
Yeah, everybody connect with Mike. Connect with me if you're not already. I'm assuming you're on this because you're connected with me. And then connect with everybody else. And I'll do my best. My VA, who's my right hand, has some family something going on this week. So I don't know if he'll be able to manage to get all the notes out and stuff. But please do. I think I copied the chat. I don't know. And then I can send it out to everyone, hopefully. All right.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Bye, everyone.
Take care, everybody.